Today, yoga and meditation fuels a massive wellness industry focused largely on personal stress relief and athletic apparel. But the monk who originally introduced these practices to the West in the late 19th century had a much sharper objective. He viewed spiritual discipline as a mechanism to challenge inequality and alleviate human suffering. Meet Narendranath Datta. Growing up in 1880s Calcutta, he is a restless, mischievous student, possessing a photographic memory and an intense appetite for reading. By college, Narendranath absorbs Western philosophy. He studies European history, logic, and the evolutionary theories of thinkers like Charles Darwin. This strict diet of empiricism, the idea that truth requires visible proof, makes him highly suspicious of traditional religious claims. He spends years pursuing jnana yoga, the path of strict intellectual inquiry. However, reading about logic fails to solve his core dilemma. He wants undeniable proof of the divine, and books cannot supply that empirical evidence. He starts seeking out the most prominent religious leaders in his city, asking them one blunt question: "Have you seen God?" None of them give him a straight answer. They offer theories and metaphors, which only frustrates his scientific mind further. Then he meets an eccentric temple mystic named Ramakrishna. When Narendranath asks him the exact same question, Ramakrishna replies immediately, "Yes, I see him as I see you, only in an infinitely intenser sense." That absolute certainty stops the young scholar in his tracks. Soon after, Narendranath's father suddenly dies, leaving the family completely bankrupt and fending off creditors. Desperate, he runs through the rain to the temple, intending to pray to the goddess Kali for financial rescue. But when he stands before the shrine, he finds he cannot ask for money. He asks for true knowledge and devotion instead. In choosing to pray for spiritual clarity instead of cash, he ceases to be an outsider looking in. He accepts Ramakrishna as his teacher, finally moving from intellectual distance to a direct path of devotion. Following Ramakrishna's death in 1886, he formally takes the vows of a monk, adopting simple ochre robes and a walking staff, becoming Swami Vivekananda. This map tracks his next 5 years. He lives as a parivrajaka, a wandering monk, walking the length and breadth of the Indian subcontinent entirely on foot, relying solely on the alms of strangers. During these travels, he comes face to face with the grim reality of British colonial rule. He stays with scholars and kings, but also sits with low-caste workers, witnessing a scale of systemic poverty and starvation he had never encountered from his university desk. He realizes that preaching religion to people whose stomachs are empty is an insult. A hungry person needs food, not theology. His time on the dirt roads of India solidifies a new conviction. Seeking personal enlightenment in a secluded cave is inherently selfish if the masses are suffering. Empathy requires mass social action. To build social services, he needs capital. In 1893, he sails for the United States to represent Hinduism at the Parliament of the World's Religions, held at the massive Columbian Exposition in Chicago. Standing before a crowd of 7,000 Western intellectuals, he bows and begins with 5 words: "Sisters and Brothers of America." The audience responds with a 2-minute standing ovation. His ability to hold the room relies heavily on his academic background. Having spent his youth studying Kant, Hume, and Spinoza, he knows exactly how to translate ancient Eastern concepts of Vedanta into the language of Western logic. He introduces Raja Yoga, the path of mental discipline and meditation. Instead of presenting it as religious dogma, he frames it as a practical, psychological toolkit to control the mind and realize the divine force within. By packaging these teachings for an audience steeped in the Industrial Revolution, he establishes Hinduism as a major world religion and builds an enduring framework for interfaith tolerance. Vivekananda returns to India a global celebrity. Rather than retiring to an isolated ashram to bask in his fame, he immediately gets to work on the ground. He establishes the Ramakrishna Math and Mission, setting up headquarters at the Belur Math complex. It operates as a dual-purpose institution, one half dedicated to spiritual training, the other strictly focused on social service, education, and famine relief. This operational structure runs entirely on karma yoga, the path of action. He teaches his fellow monks that treating sick patients and educating the poor is the literal equivalent of worshiping God. Humanitarian service is the required output of spiritual growth. When you recognize the divine in every single person, helping them becomes the highest form of spiritual practice. This diagram maps the balance between these four forces. A whole life requires logical inquiry, emotional depth, mental focus, and physical effort. This prevents meditation from becoming an isolated exercise. Inner peace must push outward into selfless service. He dies at the age of 39, yet he leaves behind a physical and intellectual infrastructure that outlives the British Empire. His writings on national strength and self-reliance became a foundational text for Indian independence leaders, including Mahatma Gandhi. His legacy leaves us with a clear directive. True clarity is not found by closing your eyes to the world's problems. It is a mandate to roll up your sleeves, uplift the people around you, and as he famously put it, arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached.